I'm usually presenting with slides, so I have a little bit more of a speech tonight than I would normally have, a little bit more prepared remarks. But it's great to be with you. It's great to see the garden again. I have to congratulate the dean and the school. It's really a wonderful thing, really impressive to see something like this in the School of Business. So in the short time that I have today, I just want to talk a little bit about the power of spaces like this, the importance of spaces like this today especially. So I teach at the School of Architecture. I help to run a global network of cities called biophilic cities. There are 30 or so cities that are in our network, and we have several thousand individuals and several hundred organizations as part of this network. And as the name implies, the foundational idea is biophilia. And this is an idea that the late Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson helped to popularize. And it's that we carry with us this innate affiliation with and love for nature. So innate, hardwired. It's not something extra or optional. It's absolutely essential, we believe, for leading a happy, healthy, meaningful life. And it can't just be something that you get, nature that is, once or twice a year on a holiday, on a vacation. It has to be all around us. It has to be something we encounter daily, if not hourly. And the research around this is really mounting, in my mind, and pretty convincing. And it's coming from lots of different disciplines: environmental psychology, public health, medicine, economics. We find that nature reduces our stresses and anxiety, enhances our cognitive performance, helps address depression and loneliness. It's a form of social infrastructure that brings us together. It helps us even to be more generous. You can argue that the nature around us helps us to be better human beings. It's really a kind of a superpower, I would say. And the evidence is from all over. So some of you know, for example, about the work in Japan around forest bathing. The idea that at the end of a walk through a space like this, through a forest, what they've found over a long period of time is that your stress hormone levels go down, that you get a boost to your immune system from that walk in the forest. The inhaling of the aerosols, what are known as phytoncides, actually have cancer-fighting qualities. They enhance cancer-fighting blood cells. This mostly from firs and evergreens, but also oak trees emit phytoncides as well. Trees and plants also have the potential to help us experience awe and wonder. I highly recommend, by the way, UC Berkeley Professor Dr. Kelter's new book about awe. He defines awe as, quote, the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding of the world. Nature's not the only thing that evokes that wonder, that awe, but it especially has that special power. He's been taking groups of students and faculty on what he calls awe walks, where he asks them to he takes them through trees and forests, and he has them look up at trees, and just looking at trees stimulates awe. And he has participants take selfies at the end of these walks, and it's really interesting. Over time, he finds that in the selfies, the faces tend to shrink. They tend to become smaller parts of the picture. What becomes larger is the trees and the nature and the other things in the world. And that's what nature like this does for us. It has a kind of humbling effect, puts our lives in perspective. It helps us to feel that we're part of something larger. As he says, Keltner, awe awakens our better angels. And this research shows that we're more open, we're more curious, we're actually kinder when we have experiences of awe like this. So I'm hoping there will be many awe walks in the space behind me, many moments of awe in the garden and the arboretum. There's also a lot of evidence about mental health benefits of trees and plants. Last spring there was a really interesting study coming out of Belgium in which they looked at the relationship between distribution of trees and sales of mood disorder drugs, also drugs connected with heart disease. And they found that in those neighborhoods where the trees were larger, where the crowns were larger, and the trees were older and larger, actually the sales of those mood disorder drugs much lower. So it's a kind of correlation, maybe not quite causation, but I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a tremendous amount of beauty and mental uplift that we get, and again, awe. So a major point that I would make about the LaCross Botanical Gardens and the Arboretum is that these are pretty essential investments in the mental health of students, faculty, and staff here at Darden and beyond. And as I think most of you know, we're in the middle of a mental health crisis on university campuses. Recent survey of nearly 100,000 U.S. college students found that nearly 40% were experiencing anxiety, 44% reported depression, and many reported having had suicidal thoughts. These are extremely stressful times for students everywhere. And what we're finding is nature is a medicine. It's a powerful medicine. And the medical world has discovered this. We're seeing now the rise in Parks RX and Nature RX programs with doctors and healthcare professionals now commonly prescribing visits to a park, walks in the forest, time spent outside. And UVA is actually part of a network of universities embracing these ideas, something called Campus Nature RX. So nature is quite powerful. I think these spaces behind me, the Botanical Garden, the Arboretum, are also going to help us connect to place and deepen our connections to the community. I really love the outward community-facing orientation of the gardens that the dean just described. The public is welcome here, and I love that they might arrive on the Rivanna Trail. That's wonderful. The trees, especially for me, are really special, and the older trees help to foster, I think, a deeper sense of time. Those larger, older trees connect us with the past, and they serve as a tangible standing commitment to the future. They're a kind of temporal moral bridge. And by the way, I spent some time over here last spring and measured a number of the trees, and I was remembering and preparing for this that one tree was about 130 inches in circumference, one of the white oaks behind me, which would put it at about 200 years old, so connecting directly to Jefferson. So helps us deepen our time horizons. And I think part of this for me is an opportunity to connect to the deeper Native American history of this place. There's much to learn, and of course we have the history of the Monacan people here, but much to learn from the Native American ideas and culture about plants and trees. I'm a big fan of the work of Native American scholar Robin Wall Kimmerer. Many of you probably have read her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. She speaks of the importance of shifting our view of trees, plants, and nature to one based around concepts of gratitude and reciprocity. Trees and forests in Native American culture were understood to be standing people as kin. She believes we need to shift our perspective from commodity to kinship. Trees are persons, she says, worthy of respect, of inclusion in a peopled world. So maybe a radical idea, but I think maybe an idea for our times, that we begin to give names and personhood to trees. I have, by the way, some specific trees that I know intimately and that I care about and I think of as people. It's a very large tulip poplar that I passed today. I was counting 6 times. I touched the bark of that tree each time I passed it. For me, it's a person. So I think and I hope the LaCross Botanical Garden and the Arboretum here will help to foster a sense of kinship with the world. We need this more than ever today. Trees as people, maybe that's a crazy idea, but it's really interesting to look at the emerging scientific evidence, which is, to me, pretty compelling. The work of people like Suzanne Simard at the University of British Columbia, a forest ecologist. Simard's research shows that trees communicate, they share information, they share nutrients and carbon. They're even able to alert other trees to dangers. They seem to exist in a community. They survive, it turns out, bound together by a complex underground mycorrhizal fungal network, what Simard calls the wood wide web. I love that. We have that behind us. So a couple of additional thoughts. I have found myself wondering, what does this kind of nature, the nature trees and plants here, have to do with a business school? One answer is back to the mental health benefits that are so important. But I also think that nature is a powerful stimulant to creative thinking and to creative problem solving. These are things that you do here at Darden. And you're likely to have better ideas, I would argue, with a lot of nature around you. I wonder also how the botanical gardens and the arboretum here will help transform the agenda of a business school. I'm really intrigued by that question. As we all know, we're in the midst of a global environmental crisis. We need, I think, to reimagine business and commerce in ways that will put nature at the center, that will prioritize ecological protection, restoration, and regeneration. So creating gardens like this, I hope, will put nature front of mind, and it might in some perhaps small but meaningful ways push along innovations and discussions about nature-centered business. So I'm coming to the end. I want to actually end with a final challenge. I want to challenge us all to think about what success looks like. How will we know the botanical garden and the arboretum are successes? And what might be the appropriate metrics for judging success? I started making a list, and I'll encourage you all to help me with this list. Maybe it's the number of selfies taken and posted in the garden, the number of iNaturalist observations and posting. I did a few of them when I was here in the spring. How about the amount of laughter heard? How many times a day is the bark of a tree touched? I'm not sure how you would calculate that or even measure that. It would be an interesting challenge. How many visitors take off their shoes and socks and walk around barefoot? Well, maybe, I don't know if we want to encourage that. I like the idea. The number of classes taught, wholly or partly outside. How much poetry is written here, maybe under a tree. The extent to which Darden students can distinguish between a red oak and a white oak. Can they do that? Does ecological literacy rise over time? How many events are taking place here? How many bio-blitzes and stargazing parties? And of course, awe walks as well. How about the amount of birdsong heard? Will you hear a screech owl at night? Maybe tonight? Or a wood thrush during the day? How much time do students, faculty, and staff spend outside? As we know, it's a little discouraging evidence is that about 90% of our time is spent inside. So this garden, I think, will help propel us all outside. I hope so. And there's now actually an app called Nature Dose that monitors the amount of time inside, outside, and your exposure to nature over the course of it. Maybe everybody can download this app and we can all kind of collectively track that. And then finally, the extent to which other business schools are following this wonderful example and create their own botanical gardens and arboretums. It's a wonderful inspiration for the business world and for the larger university community as well. So I'm going to be watching closely. I'm excited to see the impact the garden and the arboretum will have, and I will be there cheering you all on, and probably from under the white oak down the hall. So thank you very much.